still did the same million barrel a day processing, but they increased their profits. It was all about the corporate dollar, and that's what this is about. Because in that article done by USA Today, let me see where I go back. Let's see. No, that's not it. Shit.
Might as well get started on it because
Okay.
I don't know who's on. It looks like there's only me and you right now, but there's been a couple people that have been on and off.
There's a lady named Liz that looks like she's on.
Oh yeah, okay.
I'm here. I just got on. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Thanks for joining. Well, I'm just might as well go ahead. He's been kind of talking about some stuff that we talked about previously, and but he's going to go over all this stuff again, anyways.
Okay, let me get a drink of water. Be right there. Okay, is it Liz?
It is.
Okay, I'm Jim Porter. I live in Southwest Colorado.
Hi, Jim. I live in the Chicago area.
Okay. Okay, I want to bring up Illinois a little bit. Don't take it personal.
Oh, listen, I hate Illinois. I'm actually a Torontonian by birth.
A what?
I was born in Toronto, Canada.
Okay, okay. Well, yesterday I was talking to Glenn, and I was exposing him to some documents and things that I have about what's been going on with our government employees. You know, the taking of money, and people don't have any access to law enforcement, and how this is all being done. And it revolves around the Dodd Frank legislation. I don't know if you're involved. Are you familiar with that?
Well, to some degree. I mean, I'm not a law student or anything like that, but I do have an awareness of their impact on the mortgage industry.
Okay. Okay. Well, the other day when and Glenn and I were visiting a little bit early on this today, this all started back at the inception of America back in the 1770s and 80s. And it has to do with how it actually led to how they built the Constitution. You know, what came first. Mm-hmm. And so I was telling him earlier, he said, yeah, go ahead and start them at the beginning and make a quick run through on it to help people understand. And then, but this is going to be a 230-something year progression to what's going on today. And this is all about the attorneys. I ask people when I get into these discussions if they can answer the question, why does a perfectly good lawyer intentionally seek out bar membership? A lot of people will come back, well, it's, you know, it's the money or the data, you know, profile or whatnot. Those are all byproducts. The reason an attorney joins the bar is to flee the prosecution for treason found in our United States Constitution. So I start people at the beginning. The Constitution is what started the country. You can't prohibit anything until you have something to prohibit it from. So in Section 1, here's where the Congress gets started. You read down through, and I use Cornell law. It is current. It is what's in place today. And ironically, these things I'm going to show you in Article 1, they've been there since 1878. They have not been removed. They're still there. And you can see the
1788.
1787 is when the original ratification was actually done.
But yeah, okay, but you said 1878.
Yeah, I do that all the time, but correct me. I don't know why I do that.
Yeah, you're right, 1787. I made a mistake there.
So now, you have the building of a government. It's given duties. It's given things to do from the people. You get down in here into Section 8, and it's given the 100 square miles for the Washington to D.C. It's given a location for the federal government. But when you move into Section 9, the first takeaway clause shows up. And this was because the framers, the people that were writing this document, knew about the weakness of a representative form of government. And its weakness is that it allows infiltration from foreign governments. So what they did down here in this Section 9, each one of these is a clause, each paragraph, they said, no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States. And they went on to talk about offices of profit or office of trust. Well, if you do a quick search, office of profit, you will find that it is a term used in a number of national constitutions to refer to an executive appointment. Has nothing to do with money, although it's probably got money tied to it. But what it is, it's an executive appointment. Well, if you go back to this Constitution and it says, if you can't get one from the United States, it means if you've got one, it came from somewhere else. Now, the way this Constitution was set up, our federal government is like one little black dot on the face of a globe where Washington, D.C. is on. I was showing you guys this thing about offices of profit, which are actually executive appointments. And also, Liz, these are all Wikipedia pages, which you don't want to trust them all the time. But I've done a lot of research into this. These Wikipedia pages that I do use are all good information.
Okay.
So, again, if you're looking at the Constitution, you see a set of words you don't understand, Office of Profit 1, this is how you find it.
Okay. Good to know.
Okay. Now then, in this thing, what it's saying is no person holding an executive appointment, which must be from a foreign power, because you can't get them here. And I was going to tell you this about the little ink spot on the surface of a globe. That's Washington, D.C. Everything outside of that is considered a foreign government to the United States federal government, even the states. It's in Black's Law.
Okay.
So what they did, if you can't get it in our little black spot, it must have come from somewhere else in the world. And they say without the consent of Congress, you can't accept one of these. Well, what that did is it made attorneys prohibited from working inside of our domestic government positions.
May I interject a question?
I'm sorry?
May I interject a question?
You bet. Go ahead.
Okay, and you may be covering this as we go along, but I've heard that this concept applied to the original 13th Amendment, which was somehow stealthily removed and replaced with language that related to freeing the slaves, and I'm curious to know about that.
Okay. Perfect. I've been looking for you and people like you for a long time. Now I'm
lost in the Ethernet.
Listen, I'm going to go over the 13th Amendment, but I've learned that it's not all that important to us. But I actually own an 1868 law book with the 13th Amendment in it. I researched the 13th Amendment for years. And I will go over that, but then I want to show you why it's not necessarily important for us. And then but that 13th Amendment is part of the answer to why does a lawyer seek out bar membership.
Right.
Okay. Now, I just want to show you, continue here, that office of profit thing, where I said attorneys can't work in our government positions?
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard of the term order of precedence? I
have not. I'm a very bad student. I'm a new student. Let's say it that way.
I had a massive property loss in 2002, so I've got a few years on you. I had a guy tell me what I could do to myself, and I'd never win in court, never get him to court. Well, I've been at it for a while to prove him wrong. But anyway, in this order of precedence, all these countries, these foreign countries, have orders of precedence. It's the hierarchy of their kings and queens and whatevers. Well, if you go to the one on England and Wales, you can read it. All of these are for men, and then the women start here. But if the lower ranking titles, Esquire is included.
These are all titles of nobility.
Right.
So this proves that when an attorney has the title Esquire and he can't get it here, it came from somewhere else. And that prevents them. That's what this Constitution was doing, is trying to prevent these people from having influence in our federal government.
And we see the reason why today.
No joke. And it wasn't just the Constitution. They did it in the Articles of Confederation. And so, I mean, they tried it several times. And the real Article 13 and Amendment, I think, actually worked. But that's why they had to make it disappear.
Actually, they wanted it. The 13th Amendment right now is a get out of jail free card. If you think about it, who would have asked? Who would have initiated the process for the 13th Amendment in 1809? It was attorneys that did it. And I'll show you that here in just a second. But one of the things I've had people say, we're talking about all this mess. They say, well, that only takes care of titles at the federal level. Well, if you go down here to Section 10, let me scroll up for my own deal. It says no state shall enter into, and you know how you can skip commas? No state shall enter into any treaty or grant any title of nobility. So there it is at the federal and state government levels.
I have another question. I'm sorry. I was given to believe that one of the other titles that is included in this titles of nobility category are doctors. Is that true?
I haven't been able to find the definitive information on that. So right now I'm just working at getting 1.2 million attorneys out of the way.
Well, you should get that done in a weekend, right?
I'm sorry?
You should be able to get that done in a weekend.
Well, that's where this conversation's going.
I'm with you.
Well, you take a look at who's in control of our federal, in our state governments and our county governments. It's mostly attorneys.
Sure it is.
Our county commissioners don't do anything without checking in with the county attorney first.
It's all attorneys. I mean, it's all attorneys have seized control.
That's right. Now, what I'm doing is I'm working to help people understand how to get rid of these attorneys. We'll worry about the doctors in another project, I guess. But it is a valid point. I think it does exist. I just can't find it.
You can't prove it yet. Can't prove it yet.
Time will do. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll take care of the attorneys. You guys work on the doctors. But let me continue on here. In our Constitution, and the beautiful thing about this Cornell Law page, if you go to the bottom, you can click on the next article, constitutional article.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to Article 3. This is the reason that the attorneys did the 13th Amendment, the original 13th Amendment. Let me turn off some of my stuff here. It's in Section 3, and it has to do with treason. Treason is a crime committed by a citizen, a warlike act upon their own country, and that's what these attorneys are doing. Now, you can see how handy it would be to have a 13th Amendment where the penalty is cease to be a citizen of the United States. If we were to get Hillary Clinton on the witness stand for treason, she could either take one for the team and accept whatever penalty comes up to the penalty of death, or she could say, well, you can't try me for treason because I'm no longer a citizen of the United States.
Right.
Hmm.
You have to be a citizen, or well,
I just had an aha moment.
Now, do you see the answer to that very simple question? I asked myself that question and spent months answering it. Why does a perfectly good lawyer, graduated from Cornell University, with a degree in jurisprudence, individually, consciously seek out bar membership? It's so that they can cease to be a citizen of the United States, join into this clique. Anyhow, there's extra money and they get appointments and all this other stuff. But the reason is to flee the crime of treason, the prosecution for treason.
You know, conversely, this is how they are arresting the so-called sovereigns, American nationals, for treason because, well, they're not nationals, they're still citizens of the United States. And since they're citizens of the United States, tell me if my logic is faulty. They, by fighting the corporate structure, they're committing treason.
In the corporate, that's the way they're trying to make the corporate rules work. But they're not. That's where they get away from our constitutional laws.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Basically, there's two hats. There's the corporate hat and the non-corporate hat, government hats. They're trying to oppress us under the corporate structure, and they're not honoring this non-corporate structure. Now, if we move on, and I go to Article 6, and Glenn and I were talking about this before the call started. Let me get up here to Article 5 is how you change the Constitution. But then in Article 6, it gives instruction to the courts, and it says, this shall be the supreme law of the land. They claim it. They don't want to enforce it. And if you look at our hierarchy, we've got an attorney in the White House. We have attorneys in control. In fact, if you look at the SEC, the board of 5 directors for the SEC are all attorneys. You look at the Department of Justice, it's an attorney that heads that. It's always attorneys that are in the top positions of these departments, which they should have never been there in the first place if they go by the rule of the original Constitution. Now, we can go further back into the Articles of Confederation, but for me, the Constitution is enough to remove them. But I'm just pointing some of these little things out. Now, to move on in our history so that this doesn't take forever, we know that the 13th Amendment was added to the Constitution in 1812, and we know it was done before April 30th of 1812. And the reason we know that is Louisiana was admitted as the 18th state to the Union on April 30th of 1812. Back in the day when this ratification process was going on for the 13th Amendment, it took 13 states of 17 states. Adding Louisiana would increase the number, and we'd have never made it. So we know it happened before Louisiana was made a state. Now, I'm going to show you some documents that I have in my computer that confirm the 13th was ratified.
Oh, yes. There's a big controversy about the fact that there are those who claim it was never ratified, therefore it's a non-issue.
It was, and I'm going to show you law books that prove it here in just a second. But I've got to get from 1812 up to the 1860s. Now, one of the things, this is part of this I'm going to tell you is a story, but it revolves around this man named Charles Buck. He was a shipping tycoon. He had schooners, boats going around the Atlantic in the early 1800s. And who wrote this message to me misspoke when they said was offered a title by England. That's not correct. It was the Imperial City of Luxembourg. But what happened? This guy wrote his attorney, John Quincy Adams, to question him about this 13th Amendment, this newly ratified 13th Amendment, you know, and loss of citizenship. So there was a letter on March 21st of 1818. Now, I and several of us know where these originals are. We don't let anybody know just yet. And this is hard the way it's scanned in, and it's not all that important. But basically what this was a letter from John Quincy Adams back to this Charles Buck, confirming that he got his first letter, you know, of question about this deal. But then on December 2nd, and in that first letter says, and let me get back to you. Now in 1818, John Quincy Adams was the Secretary of State for the United States. And Charles Buck was also his personal client. But then on the second letter to Charles Buck from Quincy Adams, recognizing the honor to receive the letter of the last 28th of March, with this question of this offer to accept the title of nobility from the Imperial City of Hamburg. And after an executive review, John Quincy Adams confirmed that the 13th Amendment was in the Constitution. And by the acceptance of such an appointment from a foreign government, a citizen of the United States ceases to enjoy that character and becomes incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under the United States or either of them. John Quincy Adams.
Then he was an attorney.
Yes, he was.
So how did...
He never thought. I don't think he ever realized what he was getting into. But we know where these letters are located, and these are evidence that this is part of the evidence I have that the 13th was actually ratified and in the Constitution. Now, to take that another step, let me show you some stuff. I live in Colorado, and this is where I moved here in '92. I was messing around and building and with real estate, and I ended up with some property taken by my local government. And what happened? I got in the hunt on this whole thing, and all of a sudden I realized Colorado history plays a major role in the history of this country because of its timing with the Civil War. Colorado was given territorial status in 1861, just after the war started. They actually lopped off a third of Kansas and gave it to this area that was going to become the territory of Colorado. There's enabling acts, there's congressional authorizations, there's all sorts of documented history about this. But how that all happened is the Republican Party was started in 1854, if I remember right, to put an attorney in the White House to split the country by the color of a man's skin, which was the Civil War, to split the people that when part of them, they pulled the representation out of Congress, it would split the Congress and then give that attorney in the White House some kind of assumed authority to take control of the government. Now, how all of that was done is that the very first executive order issued by Lincoln on April 15th of 1861, when the southern states pulled the representatives out of Congress, they reached a point where they couldn't develop a quorum for business.
And they adjourned the Senate die.
Exactly. You know about it.
I do.
When Lincoln within like another 2 or 3 weeks or something, 4 weeks, issued the very first executive order putting the legislative branch under the control of the executive branch.
Oh,
That was what they wanted to do. So they caused a civil war, and how they did to split the populace by the color over the color of a man's skin. Now, ironically, when they knew they were going to want to start a civil war, they wanted to hoard the valuables, the richness of the state of Colorado in our gold and silver. And so there was this movement. It's an application process for for an area that once it gets 60,000 inhabitants, they can survey it off, put a set of rules together, and they send them to the United States Congress. And if it's deemed to be true and correct, then they're granted territorial status. Now, the way all that worked was in 1859 or 60, the application packet was sent to the Congress, and in it included a true and correct current version of the federal Constitution. Now, what this is, what I'm going to show you, is from 1861. And it's stored in our archives. This is a certified copy from 1995 of the territorial statutes, but it includes the federal Constitution. I've got an original book to this that has the same page in it that's 7 years newer. But you can, I'm scrolling here. This was as of September 9th of 1861. And there's the Constitution of the United States. Ironically, this particular book was owned and used by the 2nd Judicial Court District for the territory of Colorado. This was used by the attorneys to control the people. That's its pedigree. Now, if you go to the bottom at the end of this thing, the very last thing in the Constitution is the 13th Amendment. If any citizen of the United States accepts, then goes down to cease to be a citizen of the United States, there it is in the federal Constitution.
and that is, doesn't even require an action by Congress, right? It's just the moment that person accepts that title. I hate that word person. That living man or woman accepts that title, they are immediately discharged of any citizenship at all.
Yeah, it's a simultaneous thing. As soon as you accept the title, you cease to be a citizen of the United States.
Okay. They sure have muddied the waters, haven't they?
I'm sorry?
They sure have muddied the waters since then.
Well, there's a lot of stuff to sort through, but it's actually pretty simple once you get it all put in place. Now, one of the things I want to move on with is, and I want to add a little bit. See, one of the things in Article 1 that I was showing you, there's no penalty for accepting a title of nobility. It just says that we shall not, the United States won't grant them. But the reason they couldn't put a penalty in there is the day they were writing this, there really wasn't even America. They were writing it, and then it was ratified. Then America started. Well, they had to wait for the possibility of somebody being born to be the first American, and then them to grow up and want to be an attorney and accept the title. So they had this little kind of this no man's land, this grace period, where they couldn't really write a penalty in there because there really were no Americans. So that's why this was added, and it was actually initiated in 1803. It languished, it didn't go anywhere. It was tabled, it was brought back in 1809, and finally ratified in 1812. And it added the penalty, cease of citizenship. Now, this is a book where I know where it's at. There's another book, though, that I want to show you, and this is one that I own. It's very well hidden. This is a little picture of the back of it. And I didn't even put it on a hard plate to scan it. I used a hand scanner. Here's several pages. I'll just go ahead and open this up for you. These are the title pages and some of the stuff from the front of the book. You remember how the revised, I was showing you the one from 1861?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's one from 1868. What it does is it reflects the last legislative decisions as of December of 1867 for the 1868 book. And I mean, here's the authority who did it. There's the territory of Colorado, and it was approved by the Secretary of the Territory, and it includes these people. I mean, I got all this mess. I just scanned a few pages out of it. But what I want to show you is what changed. Because see, in that 1860, do you know when the Slavery Amendment was added to the Constitution?
No, off the top of my head, no, I don't.
Okay, that's fine. It's not a test. But here's the deal. It was added at the end of the Civil War in 1865.
Okay.
Ironically, the Constitution remained unchanged from 1812 until 1865. They just did with the 13th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So, the reason that they needed a civil war and they killed all these people was to create a reason to have another amendment to the Constitution. So when they slid one out,
it wouldn't be noticed.
They couldn't go from 13 to 12. Somebody say, well, what happened to 13? They needed a new one so that when they slid one out, they just put another one in there and maybe nobody would catch it. But they got caught. And this is the hard thing to which one do I show people first? I'll just show you this. These are the amendments in the Constitution. Oops. Come on.
Where's it? There it is. At the bottom.
Well, I know. I'm not used to this. My computer was taken over by Windows 10. Hang on here a second.
Oh, yeah, I refuse to do that.
Anyway, here's the 12th Amendment. Oh, I know what I need to do. Hang on, how do I do this? Oh, right here. See, I have to move my little zoom bar. You see where the 13th Amendment starts on the bottom of this page, if any citizen of the United States deal?
Yes.
Well, the next page, come on, finishes with cease to be a citizen. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Look at what's next. The Constitution went to the 14th Amendment, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude. This is its true position, is the 14th.
Oh, right.
Okay? But what they really did over time is once they got this disapproved, then they slid one out and slid everything up. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I haven't got a picture of this, but this book also has the pedigree stamps from my Colorado Montrose County Law Library. This book was purged in 2000, salvaged from the dump by a guy that got a bunch of these leather-bound books, just thought they were cool. I eventually met him here after about 12 years of him owning these things, and I bought this book from him. I own this book with a receipt.
Boy, that's gold today.
You're not kidding, it's gold. So I got one law book that it stops at 13, and 7 years later, it's got 14 in it. The one thing that doesn't change positions is the 13th Amendment. Now, let me show you the coup de grace on this. You think this is good? Wait till you see this. I love this. He was a traitor. Oh, now let me.
Traitor as in T-R-A-T-O-R or T-R-A-T-R?
Yeah, traitor. He committed treason.
Okay.
First of all, he was an attorney, so he should have never been in there. But the second thing is this document. Now, when Congress went to work on legislation or an amendment, they start with a clean piece of paper and they just start across the top. This is from the 38th Congress of the United States, a resolution. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but what it was doing is it was adding this fictitious. You remember how that I was telling you about? They wanted to add an amendment. Right. This is a congressional document, and you see where it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude.
Yes.
They were trying to slip it in as the 13th as a replacement to what was already there without repealing the first one. And what this did, they went on and on and on and on and on through business. They recorded everything. This is the vote of the Senate on April 8th of 1864, and it was passed by a vote of 38-6, and these are all the men's signatures in the United States. You can see where it was, then it was witnessed over here by somebody in the Senate and somebody in the House of Representatives, and then I'm assuming because there was more members in the House of Representatives, it took them a while longer to debate it and settle it up. But then, by January 31st of 1865, you see this date right here?
Yes.
By a vote of 119-56, these are the signatures of the members of the House of Representatives that passed this. Well, what they really do when they're dealing with an amendment is they adopt something. Each house adopts it, then they send it out for ratification to the states.
Yes.
Well, once each house adopted it, they sent it to the White House. And you remember this key date, 31st of January, 1865? The very next day, Abraham Lincoln signed the cotton picking thing. And I just showed you an 1861 law book that already had a 13th Amendment in it. Now, I don't know what happened, but it was actually ratified early in December, this amendment by the states. Somewhere before it got recorded, it's like a clerk in the Congress or somebody in the printing office realized, oh no shit, there's a 13th already there, so they just put it in as the 14th, the next position available. But this document right here, by the signature of this man and all these other people, proves that all of these people committed a treasonous act for illegally, unconstitutionally attempting to alter the federal Constitution.
And Abraham Lincoln was an attorney.
Yes, ma'am, he was.
And I also heard that he really wasn't elected as president of the United States, that he ran for the office of president.
Well,
a little nuance in there that in legal...
Those are all things that are true, but I don't know how to prove them. I try to keep it simple enough where if I got on a witness stand, I can prove what I'm saying with my documents.
Gotcha.
See, one of the things and Glenn and I were discussing just before you got on, people try to throw too much stuff at the wall because they think they've only got one opportunity in front of a court. Well, if you have one thing and you're absolutely 100% correct and you throw it on the wall and it sticks, you're 100% right and you win the case.
Right.
Now, if you throw 10 things against the wall and 9 of them fall down, you're 90% wrong and you lose the case.
Right.
But you still got that good information. So I have learned to go to the keep it simple, stupid thing.
V. Colombo.
Huh?
V. Colombo.
So anyway, this was all in the time of when they were developing the documents that ultimately became the Liber Code and started the corporatization of our government bodies.
Right.
All in this time frame. One of the things I actually think this document might have led to the assassination of Lincoln. either once he signed it, they didn't need him anymore. They probably would have let him live out his, I think he was killed by the bar. They would have let him live out his second term and die of an old age, but he might have woke up the next night and said, wait a minute, that's wrong. It's 14, not 13. And as soon as he said something, they didn't need him anymore. They already had his signature on what they wanted, because he was assassinated like less than 45 days after he signed this document.
Right.
You know, and then the corporatization of America and, the 16th Amendment and IRS and all this other mess happened when it should have never happened to begin with.
Yeah, I heard something similar to that he was actually, that John Wilkes Booth was an agent of the Rothschilds, and somehow there's always that nexus between, the Bar Association or whatever they were at the time and the banking lobby.
And that's still going well. And the banking lobbies and the Bar Association, I think the bar controls the banks, because the banks don't do anything without checking in with their attorney. But that's where I'm leading. I'm showing you history and things I've discovered that should have never happened to begin with, that would give us cause to unwind our history eventually, address these subjects.
Yeah.
The reason I'm doing all of this mess is I mentioned earlier about the Dodd Frank legislation.
Yes.
The Dodd Frank legislation might be one of the greatest magic tricks perpetrated upon the American people. Let me move some stuff around my screen here real quick. Get rid of some of this other stuff.
Would you excuse me for just a moment, please?
Okay. Now back to Google. Okay, there, Liz.
I'm here. I would say just go ahead with your presentation. It'll be recorded.
I'm here. I'm back.
Okay. Well, moving into current times, in 2010, we had the Dodd Frank legislation, and I just get to it quickly through the Barney Frank page with this link. But what this was turned out to be federal code requested by Obama in June of 2009 as to significantly change the financial regulations of the United States. In fact, the first indication of fraud today is the title itself. It has nothing to do with Wall Street reform. And if you take like USA Inc. and substitute it for the word consumer, it becomes the Dodd Frank Wall Street Reform and USA Inc. Protection Act. I'm going to show you my county documents, Montrose County. You can substitute, Montrose County Protection Act. I'll show you a bunch of stuff here as we go. But what this was it was named after Chris Dodd and Barney Frank, who were involved in the Senate Banking Committee, okay, and the Financial Services Committee for the House. That's why they picked these guys. They were the committee chairman. But what it really is, and I can't get it all on one page, but all of this financial stuff here and all of this down here was to hide this little thing about insurance fraud. Now, I can show you the 849-page real certified copy of the Dodd-Frank stuff in my computer that absolutely mirrors this Wikipedia page. This is another page that's good to use. I'm going to go ahead and click on this to get your attention, and I'm going to move back up in the page a second, but this Title V switches names to Subtitle A, the Federal Insurance Office, which is the Act of 2010, which establishes within the Department of Treasury the Federal Insurance Office. And that is whoops, I gotta, come on. I'm moving my screen so I can read it, which is tasked with these bullet point headings, and one of them is administering the terrorism. But it says administering the terrorism insurance program. Well, how do you sell insurance? You create the problem. Our federal government is administering terrorism to sell insurance. Now, how they got away with that is partially highlighted in this article, in the overview. Back to this Dodd Frank in the overview section on this article, what it does is it shows that the Act changes the existing regulatory structure. Is one thing it did, and also it of the existing agencies, changes are proposed, ranging from new powers to the transfer of powers. What they did is they neutered these different federal departments of part, if not all, of their regulatory authority. The FDIC, actually, there's no insurance. They went from 100 to 250,000 assumed coverage per account. It's not really there. But one of the things that is real critical to this whole mess is they took away the authority of the Securities and Exchange Commission to regulate insurance fraud, to investigate it. Now, they left the authority to control the people, you know, like our automobile, our home, or whatever types of insurance we have. But what they can't regulate is the state constitutionally required bonds that allow criminals, they're there to prevent criminals from gaining employment within our domestic government bodies. They neutered the Securities and Exchange of that authority, is what it's all about. And so later on, you can read all of this yourself, but if you click on this insurance button, you'll find there's this Non-Admitted Reinsurance Reform Act, which was part of this. What that did is it allowed for a new type of unconstitutional insurance to be offered, and it's called surplus line insurance. And earlier I said, I'm picking it on a little bit, don't take it personally. This particular page, and it's, you can find it at slai.org. And it's going to be tough for me to read, but because of the screen here, let me move some things around. But it discusses first of all, this page is for a criminal that has been elected to government employment. It's a guideline for how they are to get around state constitutional law that's actually in place to prevent them from ever gaining a position. Now, it discusses the term insurer. It talks about insurers were licensed on state-by-state basis and all this other mess. Then it adds the term producer. But it starts as the next player is the agent or broker, but then they collectively refer to them as producers. They've added a third term. It says, and this is very important, it says if you're in an individual or company that needs insurance, the producer acts as a middleman between you and the insurer. The producer is licensed and regulated in your state. When you tell the producer you need insurance, the producer must try to find a policy from one of the insurers that is licensed to operate in your state. It doesn't say they have to procure it from this person. They must try to find it. So really all they got to do is make a one-ring phone call, hang up, and say, well, I tried and they didn't answer. Now, the reason for all of this is in this next sentence. It says, there are some cases, however, generally less than 10% of the policies nationwide, where the licensed insurers guidelines.
You want to say that again, Jim?
Now,
You broke up.
What that is 10% of the policies revolve around bonds or elected individuals who have a criminal background. See, in your state constitution, you know, like your sheriff, your county commissioners, and your treasurers and whatnot, these people are required to have a bond in hand before they show up to the swearing-in ceremony to accept their position they were elected to. The Constitution was set up where if they couldn't buy a bond, they couldn't be sworn in. So they had to find a way around this constitutional constraint, and that's what this surplus line insurance is all about. And how you know that is if you understand why you have a corporation to limit liability. You've got a pool of shareholders that has a board of directors that under the instructions don't lose our damn money. Well, insuring a criminal will lose your money, and so they stopped insuring these people. And I'll show you about that in a minute. But if you read this, it says the risk may be too great, unusual, or substandard. That is the thing about in doing a criminal. It's a substandard risk that they don't want to expose the shareholders to. So what they did is they came up with this specialty line producer called a surplus line producer. You can read about this, but at the end of this, I want to show you, it says, it is important to note that these insurers are generally not unable to obtain a license in your state. Rather, they choose to operate on an unlicensed surplus line basis. This is where you have your elected people in your state basically paying government treasury funds to an unlicensed insurance provider, and that is now they're not regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, let me show you how I prove that. And let me think about this for a minute. Actually, what I need to do is I need to visit with you about a couple other subjects here real quick. The first one is the oath of office. The oath of office for these people is very, very important. It's actually the document that the bond is hooked to. Let me show you how that works. And I'm going to tell you a little history on this. Back in the 2000s, these elected people were creating so many claims against these insurance companies. The insurance companies, as of about 2007 or 8, stopped insuring criminals employed in the government. So what these, like your county commissioners, so what they did for a couple of years is they joined the county's group insurance plan. Well, these insurance companies realized they were still insuring these same criminals, so they stopped offering the plan, the county-wide plan. And so by 2010, they had the need for the Dodd Frank legislation to get around this constitutional requirement for bonding. And I'll show you that in a minute. But what I'm showing you now is the oath of office from 2011, right here. And these are very critical dates in the history of my documents. This man is still the sheriff. He's affirming in swearing to support the constitutions of the United States and the state of Colorado, and la-da-da-da. Well, what they actually use this document for is a place to attach the information for the constitutionally required bond. But in 2010, things changed. So at the beginning of 2011, documents started to appear differently. In my county, actually in the state of Colorado and several other states, they went to this certificate of participation concerning insurance coverage which had been approved. And in my state, this is actually a state judge that accepted this oath of office. He doesn't have a bond either. Now, what I'm going to show you,
reinsurance.
huh?
This is like reinsurance.
It's actually worse than reinsurance. Reinsurance has a form of legality, of constitutionality.
Yeah.
This does not.
I know, but it's functioning in that manner.
It's in the style of.
Oh, those dogs.
Now, let me show you something. When you get these government documents, you got to almost read every word and really sink your teeth into it. And I'm going to show you why. Now, the CRS is Colorado Revised Statutes. These numbers are not necessarily important, but it's Title 30, Chapter 10. Well, paragraph 501 deals with the position of sheriff. Well, what they did is they used this resolution, and it was the second official act of the 2011 business year for my Board of County Commissioners, and this is the resolution right here. As recorded in my courthouse. You see how they can, the next one had been 03, the next thing after that's 04. Well, the second official thing they did is they built a county resolution concerning the use of the county's crime insurance coverage to fulfill the elected officials' surety obligations. This was a recognition that they knew that there was a surety bond required, but this is how they're going to get around it. You throw in a bunch of whereas and therefores and all this other mess, and people think it's lawful, and it's not. Now, I want to show you a couple things right now. First of all, this date, April 26th of 2010. I'll show you why that's important in a minute. But you see where it refers to this House Bill 10-1062?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll come to that in a minute. To finish this document, though, on the third day of January, my Board of County Commissioners approved this fake insurance thing. Now, ironically, it was so illegal that this man, Ron Henderson, who is a local, born and raised in our valley, he wouldn't sign it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. And you can see the penmanship and the pen used is the same between these letters.
Right.
This lady just wrote the word absent in for him. They didn't wait for him to get back on vacation or anything. He just wouldn't sign it. Now, in Colorado and in other states, how their official signature is supposed to look is how they entered the election at the Secretary of State's office. This guy used his middle initial. So did this guy. So did this guy. Look up here. See where my county sheriff didn't do it. It's however they choose. There's nothing wrong with that. Until you find out that this guy used his full signature. This is an incomplete signature, which throws out this signature. Now it's not a quorum vote. The document in itself is unconstitutional. And its subject matter is also unconstitutional. You move on.
Forgery?
I'm sorry?
Is there any chance that's a forgery?
No, ma'am. It's the real deal.
Okay.
Now, one of the things I'll show you is they went ahead and they attached this fake insurance called Certificate of Participation with more whereas and therefores and supposedly rules. And then it was signed off by this guy with CTSI, County Technical Services is what that's for. See right here? County Technical Services Incorporated. County Technical Services is actually a risk management corporation. Back in that surplus line description.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me show you that real quick. Where did I put that? Oh, got to go over here. Here's the CAFR from 2012 for CTSI.
I'd like to learn how to read one of those.
You just read them. Yeah, I got to understand numbers a little bit. The reason that I brought up the 2012 report is it reflects the business of 2011 that refers back to those oaths of office.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what I want to show you, first of all, look, this is the set of board of directors. This is that Gary Ellis, my Montrose County Commissioner, that didn't sign his full name. He sits on the board of directors for the risk management company that's supposedly providing fake insurance for him to hold his position as Montrose County Commissioner. And the reason that's important is it's bribery.
Well, and how do you spell conflict of interest?
Gary.
Well, it's that too. Hey, but here, watch this.
That's why he didn't sign his name properly, because he can say there's no signature there.
That's part of it. But if you go to the Colorado State Constitution, and if you look in Article 12, you go down in here to Section 6 and 7, it actually describes what the crime of bribery is. And it's about giving people money or, things for their vote or withholding a vote, their official influence or action. All of that is a constitutional law violation at my state level. Anyway, let me get away from some of that. Let's see here. Where was I at? Oh. The reason that I'm showing you these oaths of office, because here's one for Gary Ellis and Stewart. It's got the same resolution on it from CTSI. And it duplicates this resolution. I'm going to the last person. Here's the one for Ron Henderson. There's another judge that's not bonded by constitutional law. She accepted it. But anyway, what I wanted to show you is this oath of office. This is from our county treasurer back in the day, Rosemary Murphy. You see how this last set of numbers is different? This is the chapter or the section about the county treasurers. Look here. She actually has a bond. She wasn't a criminal and she was still bondable back then. And this is the bond that's attached, not the resolution for the certificate of participation. In fact, in our county, the treasurer is also the public trustee. She actually does 2 oaths of office each year. And then she had a separate bond for this position of $10,000. So when you find your elected county officials, if you just ask for the oath of office and get it, then you will see whether they have a bond or what they're claiming is their state constitutional authority, like with insurance or whatever. And when you don't find anything, they have nothing at all.
How do you get their oath of office?
Well, in Colorado, we have the open records request statute. So you just type up a two-sentence request to the individual, to the position, requesting their oath of office. I can actually show you that. Give me a second here.
Yeah, because I've got a judge that I want to.
Now, one of the things you need to kind of make sure you research your individual state. Let's see. I should have done that. Let it load up.
It's probably the same in other states. I'm sure it is.
It is. I just warn people to please, check with your regulations. Now, what I did is I do it to the position, and this is for that Ron Henderson Commissioner District 1. I never put their name on it in case I send this in, and the next day they're fired. Whoever takes over still has to honor the request. Well, I just say, please have it. And this is for what I'm going to show you in a minute, but you could say, please have an oath of office for the legal requirement for this position. And then the second sentence is, please have a quick copy sent to my email and a hard copy to the following address. I put my name and address on it, sign it, and send it in. It's that short and sweet. Now, let me see here. What I was doing. Let me get back my train of thought here. When these people were showing that they had some kind of insurance in lieu of a bond, I started investigating that. So I would send them I sent 3 people a request for their certificate of liability coverage, and I'm gonna stop showing you documents for a minute and just talk. When you have a roofer show up to roof your house and he says, I have insurance, then you can demand that he prove it. And how you do that is you give that individual your name and contact information. He sends that along to his insurance provider, and then they send you the certificate. He doesn't get to print one off on his own. Mm-hmm. The reason that's important is that roofer may have multiple jobs going on in a 20-mile area. Well, everything might be going good at your house, but what if 20 miles away something happens and it extinguishes that policy? Everybody that has a certificate of liability coverage from the insurance company is registered with that insurance company. So that insurance company can give you a call and say, this guy's no longer insurance, and you can throw him off your property. Did that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Now, back on October 20th of last year, I sent these 3 requests in Colorado. They're called certificates of liability insurance. Now, I want to show you. You see this date of 10/23?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to pop this up quickly. But you see where this one's dated 10/28?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of this real quick because all of the body looks the same, but you see where it says certificate holder Montrose County?
Yes.
Look at this other one. 10/23.
Oh.
It's got my name on it. Now, let me tell you what happened. The treasurer, who is an honest person that I know, known her for years, that Rosemary Murphy, she's still in there. She called the producer, remember going back to the surplus line page from Illinois?
Yeah.
He called this person, passed along my contact information, and they sent me the certificate and named me as the certificate holder. Okay? The sheriff passed his along to the county attorney, and the county attorney called the producer and had this 1028 document sent to him with the name Montrose County on it. Because what I was doing is I was having multiple people in the county request the same information. That way he could just copy this off and send everybody one. That way they wouldn't be registered with the insurance provider. The county attorney did this, and that's unconstitutional. Now, I can use from here on out either one of these because the body of information is the same. But let me show you what this really is. Now, you remember, you see, you remember the title Dodd Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act?
Yes.
Well, look who's paying the policy. It's Montrose County. This is where you can substitute Montrose County in for consumer, and they're the ones being protected by Dodd Frank.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And this how you see how I prove it? Now, what actually this shows is the different types of insurance that the county supposedly has. You know, general commercial liability, automobile liability. My computer's having a hard time keeping up. Umbrella liability, workers' comp, all this other mess. Well, I don't care about their automobile, and I don't care about this other. What I was, and you see where it has these letter designations right here?
Yeah.
Insure AA. Well, look here. You see where in the policy where it says certificate, participation certificate?
Yeah.
It's actually not an insurance policy, so it doesn't meet the requirements. Then you get down here to Insure B. This is actually a policy number.
Mm-hmm.
And see how the $10 million aggregate can be extinguished by one claim of $10 million?
Mm.
Now, the reason that becomes important is if this is covering each county commissioner and the sheriff and all these people, the sheriff's budget's over $10 million. So if we can catch him committing fraud, bam, it extinguishes the policy and puts the county out of business until they buy another one. Or a county commissioner. Well, you remember in the surplus line thing where it said unusual risk, substandard risk, it's too much risk for the premium? Well, we have 41,117 residents, inhabitants of this county. So every time the sheriff commits an act of fraud, it's 41,117 $10 million claims.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's a fraud against every individual. You see where the risk became too great?
Yes.
That's why they stopped insuring these criminals. Now you take it to, we have 3 county commissioners, so now it's 4 times 41,000 times 10 million.
Mm.
Then if they commit 2 crimes a day, it's 2 times 4 times. You see how big gets fast?
Mm.
Now, if you look at this Insure B, let me show you this. Atlantic Specialties Insurance Company. See where their name is? Let me show you who that is. I'm going to go to a bookmark because I think I can go quick that way. I can't remember which registry I have it in. Let's try this other one. You ever heard of One Beacon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why I've heard of it, but.
It's a credit reporting agency.
Oh, okay.
Like Standard & Poor's or Moody's?
Sure.
Okay. It's a credit reporting company for corporations. I keep adding so much stuff in here, it's hard for me to remember where it's at. It's in here somewhere. Let me continue scrolling.
There it is.
Oh, right here. This is a report from AM Best, One Beacon Insurance, about One Beacon Insurance. I said One Beacon. It's AM Best rating service. I'm sorry.
Okay.
One Beacon is a worldwide conglomerate insurance group, and they own Atlantic Specialties. This isn't information from the company. It's from an outside source, is what makes it good. Now, let me show you this. If you read all about this company, One Beacon Insurance Group Limited, traded on the New York Stock Exchange, in which White Mountain Insurance Group owns a majority interest. See, here's another insurance company tied to it. It gives you the history of who you're actually dealing with. And another one I want to show you is, you see this Lexington Insurance Company?
Mm-hmm.
Watch this. Lexington Insurance is a surplus line insurance company. Remember the thing from Illinois? They're a surplus lines insurance company wholly owned by AIG.
Oh, no kidding.
You see how my one county document put the vertically integrated fraud all the way through the state and federal crime syndicate?
Oh my gosh. Can we talk about the crash of 2008?
Well, okay. It actually happened in 2000. It actually happened much further back than 2002, but I can show you 2002.
Everything seems to go back to AIG.
Well, why do you think they bailed them out? Yeah. AIG wasn't just insuring their health plans; they were insuring their actual jobs. And all of this is about sidestepping the state constitutional laws preventing criminals from actually ever taking position within government position, taking office in government positions. And it was all to neuter the sheriff because they feared the sheriff's authority. They didn't want to come home at Christmas and be arrested. But anyway, so now you see how it's starting to build. Now watch. You remember when I was showing you the Dodd Frank stuff and the terrorism insurance and whatnot?
Yeah.
Okay, watch this. Let me close up some tabs so my computer is quicker. You can actually go to now, there's two things to understand. You see this little word risk in here?
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is one page. You remember where the Office of Insurance is set up in the Department of Treasury?
Good gravy.
Well, you remember it? Now, in the Resource Center, it actually tells you after the World Trade Centers were bombed, President Bush enacted this terrorism insurance program in 2002. Said the Secretary of Treasury administers the program. Then it was renewed in 2005, 2007, 2009. Barack Obama asked for Dodd Frank, which was a refined deal. I'm going to tell you what happened is Barack Obama, when he was a sitting senator, was messing with this in Illinois. And he had AIG put all this together. So when he was elected in 2008, inaugurated in 2009, he asked the Congress for it. They went to AIG, and AIG says, well, we just happen to have this plan. Now, to hide the insurance fraud, they built the finance stuff on top and bottom to hide it. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if you take a look at this, by the subsection, under section 111 of this, they actually build reports and report to Congress every year. The Congress knows all about this, but they're damn sure not talking about it. And then, if you, let me see, how, oh, what's this? If you look at under the federal office, of insurance right here. Look at here's under the same department. This is another this is another page where it's about this is the new program put in by Dodd Frank in 2010. See, this article doesn't go back as far as 2002 in the Bush administration, but you see how they're trying to hide it? But if you read this, it says customer, okay. Is vested in the Office of Insurance, Federal Office of Insurance, with the authority to monitor all aspects of the insurance sector. See where they don't have authority, they just monitor it. Monitor the extent to which traditional unserved communities and customers have access to affordable non-health insurance products. That's the same as insuring criminals for government positions. See, it's non-health, and it's underserved communities and customers. That's kind of like my community that couldn't get their sheriff and their county commissioners insured, bonded. That's what it's all about right there.
Holy cow. I mean, where do you start with this?
It's the sheriff. That's where I'm going. Now, I want to show you a couple other things that when you do a Google search, and you got to understand whether to put the word risk in there or not. Yeah, right here. Here. This is how long, I mean, they've been reporting about it, but nobody's reading it. This is from USA Today, January last year. Okay. They're talking about how it's renewed. But if you go to the end of the article, what's funny is it actually talks about Elizabeth Warren introduced this amendment to Dodd Frank to remove the provision in the bill that she said will weaken regulations governing Wall Street. That one deal could have blown the whole Dodd Frank insurance Heidi scheme. And so they voted against it. That makes sense?
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Let me just tell you why I'm reacting this way. I spent 10 years in financial services as a registered principal. I know what the implications of all of this is.
Is it serious?
It's very serious because it removes the protections of compliance.
That's why that's why the people can't have criminals arrested. We make criminal complaints and the sheriff won't do anything. And I'm going to show you, that's why it's not prosecutorial discretion by the district attorneys. They just don't have to follow the damn constitutions. Now, I was going to show you this other little thing under this Wikipedia article on this previous Insurance Act of 2002. Let me show you why it happened. It was all revolved around the 911 attacks in New York that created a $40 billion loss. And it was said it was the worst terrorist attack on record, both in property and fatalities, and the worst international attack on American soil since the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Well, if you read that, what it says is these bad attacks don't come from citizens. It's from a government entity. 911 was our government working with either the Israelis or the Saudis. Mm-hmm. They got information on both. Mm-hmm. But the next one back in history was 60 years. The Japanese government. Can you imagine the premiums paid on all these public works projects that require terrorism coverage? The government needed to knock these buildings down to drive the ordinary corporate insurers out of the market so that they could develop Dodd Frank and step in and capture the premiums when there's really no risk. That's what this was all about. Mm. Now, because they were doing that, they went ahead and made it so grandiose that it actually took care of all of the elected officials, including the sheriffs, and it stripped them of their constitutional authority to do their job, put them in the corporate realm.
Well, think of all the terrorist attacks that have been happening since then, too, or so-called terrorist attacks.
No, they're terrorist attacks, but they were actually by the hands of our government.
Well, but they're called false flag operations.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you one of the things in one of these articles, it says to claim this, it has to be disclosed as a terrorist act. That's why if it's too big, they're not going to claim it as a terrorist attack. That way they don't have to pay the insurance money. There's something else. Let me see. What is it? Wait a minute, guys. Watch this. Liz. You remember I mentioned vertical integration on that one document from the county to the federal?
Yeah.
And then you remember I was showing you on that resolution, House Bill 10-1061?
Yeah.
Okay, here it is. I'm going to tell you what happened, and I'm going to show you what I found. In 2009, they asked for Dodd Frank. It was put in 2010. Well, what it was the authority, the unconstitutional federal code that the state legislative assemblies use so that they could pass a state statute that the county commissioners use to build county resolutions. You remember in that oath of office and in that resolution it says per state statute we're going to do this county resolution.
Right.
Okay. What this is, in 2010, from the 67th General Assembly of the state of Colorado, second regular session, this is a House bill by these people concerning the ability to allow a county to purchase crime insurance coverage in lieu of a surety bond. I don't know where it came out, but you see where this was, where my state legislative assembly used the authority of the federal code, unconstitutional code, to cite. See, they didn't repeal the constitutional requirement that allow the vote of the people. They can't build a document that says we'd like to screw you over. We don't want to get in trouble. Would you vote yes for it? The people won't go for it, so they just do it in session. Now, one of the things in Colorado, this document's kind of neat because it goes over the bond and insurance requirements. And let me move this again here. Okay. In Colorado, before it says, and this is in my Title 30, it says, before entering upon the duties of the office on or before the date of commencement of the term the officer was elected, shall execute and deposit an official bond. They even in the damn statute recognize the requirement for the bond. But then they're going to do this to try to get around that. And it's just the people haven't caught on to it. Now, I want to show you something. You remember when I told you Dodd Frank was done on July 21st of 2010?
Yeah.
Then how in the hell did my guys know to approve it 90 days before the code ever came out?
Okay.
See down here at the bottom of the date?
Okay.
This is the bar members in working amongst themselves. They know nationwide what they're up to before they ever let the people in, and then they can't even get their life straight and get the chronological order on their dates correct. And you remember I was showing you on that resolution, they said April 26th?
Right.
There's another document out there with April 26th on it. It's all a big lie.
Well, they got away with it because nobody is paying attention, and for those who are, it's a convoluted process.
Yeah, and the sheriffs are see, one of the things earlier I made a comment about how to fix this. It all starts at the county sheriff level. Mm-hmm. I want to show you a couple emails real quick. In my archives. Now, in Colorado, we have what they call the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. What that is an investigative division, Colorado Department, within the Colorado Department of Public Safety. I'll just show you that real quick. Let's see if this is it. I got all the way in and it shortcutted me a little bit. Nah, wrong page. Damn it. I need to show you this. Hang on here. Oh, come on. I hope I didn't wipe everything out just then. I think I hit the wrong button. Let it load up. Son of a gun. Yeah. In Colorado, we have the Colorado Department of Public Safety, and when you look at this leadership thing, we have the executive director. He is a direct appointment of the governor, and I've got a message from the letter from the governor reporting this guy as part of the syndicated crime ring. He recognized it, but he's not doing anything about it. And on top of that, this guy actually came from a sheriff position in Mesa County, which is 90 miles north of me. This guy was not bonded when he was the sheriff. He was unconstitutional. He's actually a criminal put at the highest level of the Department of Public Safety to try to protect the governor. But if you look down into, and these are the divisions of the department, division of wildfire. Well, here's the department, the division, Colorado Bureau of Investigations. Look at this. It's charged with all these other deals, provides a variety of criminal investigation services to local agencies, including forensic and crime scene analysis, trained investigative deals, but it says investigations of complex financial crimes. That's exactly what I've been trying to report to them. Now, let me show you how that works. Let me get back to these emails. I X'd out of the wrong damn thing here, so I'll start over. In Colorado, we have 6 regional offices for the CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation. And this Colin Reese is the lead special agent in the region that I'm located in, which is Mesa County, where that sheriff came from. Ironically, I received this message the day before Christmas last year. I had been making all these criminal reports to my sheriff. This Sheriff Dunlap, remember the oath of office? Naming the district attorney as insurance fraud. Now, this isn't for you guys, but my sheriff knows who Dan is. Drug trafficking, attorneys running a crime ring, a $200 million financial fraud by one county commissioner. Well, and you see the dates I was making these reports? Well, my sheriff was forwarding these things to the CBI, and eventually they wanted to have a meeting, but they won't have a meeting unless I call them on the phone. And I'm not going to call them on the phone because I did this before. They edited several phone calls, took question and the wrong answer, put them together, and then tried to prosecute me for this. Now, the reason I wanted to pull this up, this is my sheriff asking the state to investigate when the last message of January 11th, if you have information regarding a crime, please contact your local law enforcement. They sent me back to the sheriff's department and dropped the investigation. My sheriff won't investigate because he's not constitutionally bonded, and the state won't do it because they're full of criminals. And I have it in email messages from these people. Now, go ahead.
So what's the next step?
Well, it's going to take a group of people in a county somewhere in this country to come together. And I was talking to Glenn about this just before we started this call. In my county, we have 67 deputies, so it's going to probably take about 100 people. It's kind of like if a fight starts, it's even up. You're going to have to go and demand that the sheriff bond up. And if he doesn't, leave office. And people are going to, I don't know how big the fight will get, but it all revolves around the enforcement authority the non-corporate sheriff, which we elect, actually has when he bonds up. And the reason that's important, you don't need a grand jury presentment to effect the arrest of a criminal. And to prove that, if the alarm goes off at the bank, law enforcement runs in there and they can arrest everybody, sort through who didn't have a gun, let them go and keep the ones that had the gun. You don't need a grand jury to say, oh, you need to go check with the bank and arrest some folks. They can make the arrest immediately. The reason that's important, if your sheriff has a bond, and if my sheriff has a bond, and I make a criminal complaint, and I back it up with the documents to him that I've shown you, which I've tried to show him, but he won't have a meeting with me, he can then arrest an individual. And who I would suggest he arrests is the setting district attorney in that 7th Judicial District. And let me show you that. This is the oath of office on that Dan character that I was reporting. This is his oath of office. And you see, the reason I had Dan all capitalized, he uses corporate fiction to register with the Secretary of State for the election. And his signature is different.
Why would you do that?
Huh?
What is the significance of registering the corporate fiction?
It's to deflect personal liability in the event of a fraud or a failed criminal prosecution. He don't want to go to work and lose a case and then have his personal finances tied to anything. So he uses his corporate fiction. Now, this guy solemnly swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state of Colorado. He is the district attorney for the 7th Judicial District. Now, if you notice, this oath of office, which does not have any insurance information on it. No bond, no insurance, no nothing. And it was accepted by a 7th Judicial Judge. This Jeffrey Haran, remember his signature was on some of those others? Oaths. Well, the state in Colorado, the state employees' oaths are recorded at the Secretary of State's office. That's where this came from. I could show this to the sheriff. What he could do is he would contact the Secretary of State's office and demand a certified copy of this document to be used in his evidence package when he arrests Dan for the prosecution of constitutional fraud. And also, when I was making this request, I went ahead and just had him pull me in. I don't know why these things came sideways. They're long documents. This is also from the Secretary of State for the 7th Judicial District. This is this Judge J. Stephen Patrick. But in the body, see, there's no bond or no insurance accepted by another judge. Well, to prove what was going on, I went ahead and I had another judge oath pulled. This is that Bennett Morris, and it was accepted by the previous guy, J. Stephen Patrick, and it doesn't have an insurance or bond on it. One of the things I did is I caught the whole mess. There's about 350 to 400 state judges, depending on turnover, any one day. The entire state judiciary is operating without a bond or an oath, which is in violation of the state constitution. The reason I would demand the arrest of the district attorney, this guy, Dan, is he's the guy most visible. Ironically, the judges don't go to work until this guy actually brings a defendant before the courts. So you start with this guy first. He's the position of district attorney in any state is the Achilles heel to the entire state judiciary. Now, what I would do is when my sheriff bonds up, I will make a criminal complaint to the about the district attorney. The sheriff calls over, and they'll get it in about an hour, certified copy of what I don't have a certified copy of. I don't need to spend the $15. That's for the sheriff to do. But the reason all of this is important, have you ever heard of an arraignment hearing, Liz?
I have.
Have you studied what it really is?
No, I have not. I just always, I understood from context that it was a presentment of charges and, either you accept them or you deny them.
Okay. Well, you're actually, you know how you can be correct but incomplete? With a little further study, If you read on an arraignment hearing, it's not a hearing, it's a proceeding. It's a criminal proceeding at which the defendant is officially called before a court of competent jurisdiction, comma. The entire state judiciary fails in that first statement before the comma. There are no competent jurisdictions. There's no, because they're not constitutionally qualified to hold a position. Does that make sense?
I need another reading of this.
Okay.
My brain is full.
I understand. And
I think I'm still in shock from
It's
the blatant.
it's not a court. It's not a court of competent jurisdiction because they don't have a bond.
Yeah, okay.
So here's how the system would fail. The sheriff would arrest Dan, have his secretary produce the arresting documents and submit them to the clerk of court. The clerk of court would assign one of their fake judges to hold the proceeding. As soon as the sheriff's bailiff introduces an individual to the bench, well, let me back up. To know where to take the defendant, Dan, the district attorney, the court would then notify the sheriff which judge, supposedly competent, was assigned. The sheriff would contact the Secretary of State and have a certified copy of his oath of office given to the sheriff. And when it doesn't have a bond, that proves the incompetence of the jurisdiction. When that individual takes her position behind the bench, the sheriff can immediately go arrest that judge. It stops the proceedings, and now you have two people in jail, the district attorney and the judge.
Does this work in administrative hearings?
It will at the state level.
Oh, for heaven's sake, foreclosure is out the window.
Well, let's get a bonded sheriff and get the district, let's shut down the state judiciary, then we'll worry about all the other stuff later. See, as long as the sheriff's not bonded and the district attorney's in play, you can't get to the foreclosure stuff because the corporate judiciary is still in place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
So you got to do I think you got to do this first. Now, technically, the proceeding is where a plea of guilt or not guilty is entered. Well, you never get to that. Dan doesn't get a chance to say a word. In fact, you don't even have to Mirandize him. You never say a word. You just arrest him and throw him in a jail cell. You haul him in front of this court, and then you arrest the judge and put them both in jail. You never say a word to any of them. And if you continue to read this article on the arraignment, it actually goes back to the Sixth Amendment. And it talks about the Supreme Court has ruled, which I don't recognize the Supreme Court because they're all attorneys that shouldn't be there to begin with. But they've even said rules that arraignments are a necessary precondition. See, it's a precondition. That's why it's a proceeding. And the court has also ruled that failure to arraign a defendant is not a reversible error. The defendant knows that he is accused, but you don't have to actually tell him about it. The court has to produce a constitutionally qualified judge to continue the process. And so this thing fails upon an error or a problem in their rules of procedure. You shut them down on their own rules. And once you do that, now the sheriff would have his secretary do another set of arresting documents for that judge, turn them into the clerk of courts. Do you think another judge is going to show up to either one of those hearings? They'll resign their position and flee the state. Once and then the district next to it, the people up there can do their district attorney. This thing will go across the state in a week. And all it takes is a constitutionally bonded sheriff. And that's the reason for the Dodd Frank to not bond the sheriffs and come up with this insurance fraud to protect the criminals in our government positions.
But now, and I'm probably all over this stuff is way over my pay grade. I'd like to be able to listen to this presentation 2 or 3 more times, but isn't the Constitution, and that's the supreme law of the land, we established that, you did early on, which those provisions supersede any Dodd Frank exceptions.
Perfect. Let me show you. You mentioned earlier you'd like to learn how to read a CAFR.
Yeah,
Colorado. Let me show you something. This is actually from 2012. It's the state financial report for the business of 2011 when it broke out. The problem with Dodd Frank is it was put in, but the people had to wait for the government body, the individuals, to use it to build the documents so that we could expose the fraud years later. That's why it's gotten so out of hand, is it took a long time to discover it. But in our in this CAFR from the state, I'm going to scroll quickly just to show you something. It's actually a flow chart of how the government's supposed to operate.
Somehow in there show revenue streams.
Well, that's what the CAFR is, a flow of revenue streams, but it's only about 20% of the money that the state actually deals with. But what they did in my CAFR is they actually put the hierarchy of placing the Constitution of Colorado above everything else. And actually the federal Constitution sets up here. And that's through the Enabling Act that was signed into law by the Congress that allowed Colorado to become a state.
Okay.
They have to honor the federal Constitution, and for everything not addressed in the federal Constitution, they can build a state constitution which is subservient to the first.
Can we just assume that's true of the state that I live in and the state
it's actually true of all states if you get these documents. But what I was going to show you is then in the hierarchy, you got the governor. I got letters from him where I've reported it and he won't do anything. I've got, the General Assembly tied into it with their Legislative Assembly thing of 2010. You got the Supreme Court tied into it, and the court administrators and the Court of Appeals. Well, you see where the judicial district judge attorneys fall into the mix. There's only 22 of them in my state, and I've got one of them handled. The whole thing would fail upon itself. Now I want to go, since I've got this up, let me show you a couple pages in this. These CAFRs are terrible reads. I mean, I've read this several times, but if you go into the body of it, it talks about encumbrances, talking about possible lawsuits and different things. Well, one of the things it discusses of the numerous cases pending, there's this $122 million claim for property compensation and breach of contract. That's what my loss was all about, that they won't let me sue the city and the state on. I've been prevented from entering the civil court system. And breach of contract, it says, it finishes this paragraph, it says, while it is reasonably possible that awards of judgment could occur, what are you talking about? It is unlikely that those awards would have any material adverse effect on the state's financial condition. This was their report that they're in control of the state judiciary and they're not going to let the people sue the state. Then on top of that, in my CAFR, they actually they address notes, bonds, and certificates of participation payable. I was showing you how certificates of participation are listed on my county oaths of office.
Yeah.
You can read all about this, but mathematically, when you take the principal and you multiply it times the interest rate, it gives you the interest expense.
Yeah.
Well, then you take the interest
I think I'm going to cry.
Oh, here it is. This is another Dun & Bradstreet report on those same 71 deals. Look at all of these different corporations in blue that are listed, and see all of the registration numbers. And these attorneys sat on the boards of all of these different state deals that are hoarding money. Here's the judicial branch. Here's the Colorado Taiwanese thing. State of Colorado. I got to keep going. This is a long report. But it's got all this is the address for the Supreme Court and the Secretary of State. And this goes, if you track all of these, it even goes into the ownership of the buildings that people think are state owned. They're actually owned by the Colorado Bar. I found this in several different states. I've got a group of people that work for these different reporting companies. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but you can see how, all of these, East Colfax, these are all of the different, this is the same address for all these corporations that are housed within the Supreme Court building. Now, I want to show you another credit report. Montrose County Commissioners. You remember on those oaths of office and those resolutions, I showed you that one complete signature, David White, David S. White?
Yeah.
He's one of my Montrose County Commissioners. This is a corporation, Montrose County Commissioners, with a registration number. And this is its address here in my county, Montrose County. It'll tell you what it is, but look here. Oh, and you got to get through all of this other, these are all other sub-corporations within that one. The only officer listed is that David White. This is the reason that these people run for these elected positions, because they get their hands on these hidden corporations, and then they can siphon the money out of them. And I'm going to have to go buy all these blue things, because these are all different links to different corporations in there. But in that one corporation, and I want to show you, this is all consecutive page number counts. Remember I started with a government corporation report? Mm-hmm. Here's page 5, and it keeps going. You see how it switches to future moves of America with a different registration number?
Yeah, why is that?
Well, let me show you. And it said a different address, 1120 East Main. And they siphoned off into this corporation. I forgot something. I got to go back up. I'm sorry. This is what makes this sexy. This particular corporation, and this report was as of September 6th last year. In 9 months, this corporation had generated $200 million in annual sales. And that one guy is in control of $200 million. So then it ties into this other corporation, Future Moves of America. And what that is, it's a household moving and freight business, picking up people's stuff from one house to the next or putting it in storage. And it's owned by his wife, Don White, at that same 1120. This is where he moves it into his family business. And then it's moved into this itty-bitty shipping committee, which is a Canadian corporation. But but they register their trucks under this U.S. Department of Transportation number. So this is how David White, actually what happened is, to get rid of this money, he had to get a bond rating. So he gave all of this financial information to Dun & Bradstreet and wrote him a check for it. They produced this report and gave it a credit rating so he could sell the bonds, and the bonds are the money, or the instruments used to transfer the money. So he's got a government corporation tied to 2 of his personal businesses. He's a 49% owner in that Future Moves. His wife is 51%. So what they're doing is they're taking the money from the government corporation, putting it into the private corporation and then taking it to Canada offshore with itty bitty. And it's all in this big, long, continuous credit report. It's got his family members tied into it and all this other mess. This exists in every county in the United States. And this is why they don't want the sheriff being able to arrest these government criminals. David did this hoping never thinking anybody would find it. But this guy's son is, he's committing other crimes against me, and it's a big, long story, which I'm not here to have you solve. But yeah, this is what it's all about. It's about getting your hands on hidden government money and then having the protection from law enforcement so that you don't get arrested and charged with different crimes. And so it all hinges upon getting a sheriff bonded and starting the exposure.
So what's the do for us?
I'm sorry?
What is our due? What do we?
Well, I don't know what our due. First of all, we need to get the criminals out of government. And that's what I keep going back to. It takes a sheriff. And so I'm showing you all of this to show you what's available in your county. There's 4 people on here now. You can all be from different states and different counties, but similar documents exist in your locations. You can get the oaths of office, which starts the trail of the insurance fraud. That's what tells you what they're using. Also, I've shown you Dodd Frank. Every state legislative assembly dealt with putting a statute in place somewhere around that July 21st date for Dodd Frank. Now, my state did it early, 90 days earlier. Your state could have. You've got to go to the state archives and research what your legislative assemblies actually did and what got put into the archives, and you will find the same type of information. Then you can also demand a certificate of liability coverage. It may not be called that in every state, but it is in a lot of places. If not, you'll just have to work through different name combinations. This is a particular certificate that I helped a guy in Georgia get on his, and he got this report from the Clayton County Commissioners. It's the same. It's on the same certificate of liability in another state. I don't know, 1,400, 1,600 miles away. So it's got the same letter designations. It uses different insurance companies, but and I've helped him research these. This Star Indemnity is actually a New York company. Remember where I was telling you give the one ring and then you don't do business with somebody in your state? This LaToya Cotton is using a New York company for this liability. And if you look down here on his certificate, whoops, it also has the $10 million aggregate. One occurrence will do the pot limit. It's not an accident. Somehow it's a requirement that they all feel that they've got to do. So it exists in Illinois, it exists in Texas, it exists everywhere. I'm just trying to help people learn what's out there so that they can go find these documents and then get together in their communities, get a bunch of people around them so that somebody somewhere can actually start the process of getting a sheriff. If he doesn't know, if he is not aware that he's not bonded, maybe he will bond up. And if he won't bond up, then it'll take a force of people that to get him to leave office so they can work with the replacement and start this process. If it was easy to do, I'd already have done it, but I don't have any support from any of the people in my community. It's a retirement community and they don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
Actually, my community, it's a third retirees that are done with the fight. They're willing to just take their check and they got a debit card and call Domino's Pizza to the house. Then a third of them are on welfare and they don't want to mess with the government and reduce their benefits. And the other third are working people that can't be tied into this and caught in the news and lose their job. I've had a lot of people sympathize with me and wish they could do something, but individually, not anybody's done a damn thing. except me, and you can see where I've reported it to the sheriff. They've got the state law enforcement involved and all this other mess. I've even asked John McCain to have me arrested by the federal marshals and hauled before his Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs to report this terrorism. And I've got letters back from him where he's not going to do it. I'm right now working with Chuck Grassley out of Iowa, who sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee as a senior ranking member, reporting this, trying to get him, at least I'm telling him that this exists to let him know that the people are starting to learn about it.
And his response?
I haven't got a response back. The only thing I did is I sent him a letter. I sent also this report, this claim through the whistleblower mechanism to that Senate Judiciary Committee, and I got a reply back that they received my message, but they haven't said they're going to do anything about it. So part of what I guess I'm doing in maybe in a way it's not what I meant to do it for, but it's a benefit of this. I am actually showing others what you can get away with if you do it correctly. I'm not threatening anybody. I'm not claiming patriot status or any of this other stuff that can get me tangled up in trouble. Ask about that Judiciary Committee. This is where I got my back from the whistleblowers department. Thanks for your recent contact. Got another one down here from them. I don't open them, but there, I got another one. They've got it twice, documents. What I was finding is I was trying to write stuff up for people, then they couldn't find what they wanted. They got frustrated and quit fighting. This would take a 1,000-page book to write for every county possibly in the country, and I don't have that kind of time.
Oh, sure.
But I show these links. This is being recorded right now. People can go back and try to, if they want to spend whatever the 2 hours we've been on now.
That's what I was asking, if there was a recording, we could go back and, because there is so much information here, and I guess I kind of got stuck back in insurance, having come from that industry, just the absolute, the blatant violations of, compliance was king when I was in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no such thing anymore. Well,
this all started back in the, probably in the late 1990s.
Yep.
What happened is more criminals started being elected. They would lie on the stump and get people to elect them, and then they couldn't get bonded, so they were finding these ways around the Constitution requirement. Then it got to where so many of them were doing it, the insurance companies were just not selling insurance to the counties anymore. And one of the things while they were fixing that, they just decided to address some other issues, and then they hid it inside of this supposed financial reform. That is actually no financial reform at all. I've been down and talked to a lady that works at my bank, that she and I kind of know each other. Known each other for years, done business and stuff. Ironically, she's told me that the Dodd Frank is one of the most harmful things that's ever happened to the banking industry.
Oh, sure.
One of the things in this Dodd Frank Wikipedia article, I'll show you, and I've even contacted this bank, but they continue to use their attorneys. It actually says this constitutional challenge to Dodd Frank, which was done in the district court by this bank in Big Spring, Texas, the State National Bank. There's banks that are trying to fight this, but what they're doing is they're using their attorneys and filing in district court. They're filing to the people causing a criminal violation of the Constitution, and they can't get anywhere. Well, no wonder. It all revolves around a group of people in one community getting a sheriff to bond up and start the process of arrests. And then using the arraignment hearing procedurals, the rules, to break the system. And once that happens, the people can then, what if we did without a judiciary system for 20 years? It would be better than what we got now.
Yeah.
But eventually the people can come together, they can form their common law grand juries, they can institute the common law courts, which are provided for in the Constitution. And once we get that taken care of, then they can go back and address all of these old claims, the foreclosure problems and everything else, child custody complaints or whatever. And we can go all the way back to Lincoln. We can go back to the 13th Amendment. Oh, and I wanted to speak to you about that 13th Amendment. You remember when I was telling you it's not necessarily important for the people to prove it was ratified?
Right.
Here's the reason why. It goes back to getting the president or Hillary or one of these government employees on the way, under charge of treason. They would either have to take one for the team and accept the penalty for the crime of treason, or they would have to invoke the 13th Amendment, and then they would have to prove it was actually ratified. The first attorney that does that to save their cowardly butt would actually be putting the noose around every other attorney's neck.
Yeah.
That's why we know it's there. I've proven it's there. I've shown the Secretary of State and Abraham Lincoln trying to, talking about it was there. We know it's there. I've shown you law books, it's there. So let's just kind of set it aside, use Article 3 and the treason thing, start to, and when common law court finally shows up, once the state court systems cease to exist in their corporate structure, when we go to common law, we can start prosecuting these people for treason, and then they'll start using the 13th Amendment, and our position is strengthened. Now, ironically, when they cease to be a citizen of the United States, it doesn't assign them citizenship anywhere else in the world. We may have to incarcerate them as aliens without a country.
Guantanamo Bay sounds like a perfect place.
We put them anywhere. We can take them out in the desert and chain them to a cactus. I don't care. Put them, put a dome over an old gravel pit and stick them in that and let them dig out. But the thing about it
Turn them loose in the Northwest Territory, and if they make it past the Grizzlies, they're free.
The Grizzlies will be full after a few thousand, and a few could escape. But here's the deal. As long as they're out of our domestic government positions, isn't that really all we want?
Yeah.
I mean, in the overall, you can't have everything. So if I'm going to ask, if you only get one wish when the genie pops out of the bottle, I'm going to wish all attorneys were out of our domestic government positions. And this is how you do that. If they want to go to England, if they can, if the Queen will accept them, send them on. If actually what's funny is in Colorado, if we do one or two district attorneys, the rest will flee. They'll go to another country without extradition, agreements. Fine, let them stay down there. As long as they're not here. We know they're not American citizens, so they don't need to be here. Why do you think they're not prosecuting Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
She's part of that clique.
Yeah, they're laughing at us.
Yeah, well, the president's attorney, she's an attorney. The head of the Department of Justice is an attorney. The head of all of the Supreme Court justices are attorneys. All of the federal judges are attorneys. All the state judges are attorneys. All the prosecuting attorneys are bar members. Where it says there possibly could be a judgment, but it's really not going to have any financial effect on the state, it's because they know that the bar is in control of all of our government positions. And that's what, if we fix that, there's only 1.2 million attorneys in this country, approximately. The first 100 that go down, the rest of them they're cowards. They'll run for their life.
Well, I say we buy an island and ship them all.
Well, again, we don't have to worry about buying an island until we get one, until we run out of area, Guantanamo or anywhere else. Oh, that makes, I want to just show you another fun document. In Colorado, every criminal prosecution has been unconstitutional since 1876 when the state was accepted statehood status. Let me show you that. This actually exists in every other state too. In Colorado, I'm going to pull up something else here. Whoops. Oops. You remember that movie theater shooter that the state of Colorado prosecuted earlier this year, James Holmes?
Yeah.
All right. I want to show you some stuff on him. Now, this has changed quite a bit. My listing, let's see. Before they convicted him, you could go straight to the document. Let's see. There we go. Let's do James Holmes court documents. These are court documents that they used to prosecute this guy over like a 3 or 4 year period. And I'm just going to go down in here into the body of them and just pick a couple of them and see what I come up with. That's not the one I'm looking for. Some of these had, oops, damn it. Some of these had errors in them, clerical errors. Oh, here's one. You see how it's the state of Colorado, the people of the state of Colorado, all caps, you know, the corporate name versus James Holmes corporate name?
Right.
Okay. Watch this. Oh, I didn't get to it yet. There was a lady back in early 2000s that was having trouble with the state of Colorado, and she's wanting to know who the hell was prosecuting her. And what she did is she noticed that it was the people of the state of Colorado versus her. So what she did is she submitted a request to the Colorado Secretary of State and got the certified response back. And it was dated 2004. And this was the lady, Donetta Davidson, Secretary of State, hereby certifies that according to the records of this office and this date, no records exist for all these different types of corporations available in the state, foreign or domestic, under the name the people of the state of Colorado, all caps. In the Colorado Constitution of 1876, the framers put in the words in the statement that all criminal prosecutions would be affected in this name, in this corporate name. Nobody in the judiciary, the Department of Law, has ever registered for this corporate name. Every single criminal prosecution, as this one was, is actually unconstitutional. This exists in all other states. Eventually, if we actually started straightening this out, we'd have to let all of the existing criminals go. We'd have all this room for all of the government criminals. All of these people are eligible for a retrial, including this movie theater shooter. And I've got the government report from the Secretary of State of Colorado to prove it. Hmm. Actually, what's funny is I went over last September, or last May, to get a revised copy of this, and they threw me out of the Secretary of State's building, saying, because I was going to give it to that movie theater shooter, and they wouldn't give it to me. They had me escorted out of the building. I didn't want to give him a 2004 report when he was on trial in 2015. Yeah. And plus, I had a bunch of people in Denver pissed off. I was lucky I got out of town without getting shot when I told them what I was up to. But yeah, there it is. Foreign or domestic. There's no foreign or domestic corporation registered under this name. So this is the illegality of all our state judiciaries. They're just flying by the seat of their pants. They write these flourishing documents to make people think what they're up to is legal. But you've researched Black's Law. Legal is not constitutional. they're not legal or constitutional.
Now, certainly is a lot to chew on.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate the time that you folks have given me so that I could start to show you some of this. But it's the heinousness of it is what gets people. They cannot believe that their government employees are up to all of this.
Yeah, you get that look of incredulity from people when you try and explain even the smallest deviation from what they understand about how government, or what government is and how it works.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they just, they get that glazed look on their face.
Absolutely.
Let me see about doing something here real quick.
Well, I'll tell you, if I wouldn't have had the financial services background that I have, I don't think a lot of what you talked about, particularly about insurance, would have really registered. But I understand from the time, of course, the rules apply differently to the little guy, and we were all little guys. That, you just didn't mess around with compliance issues. Or you'd have a regulator up your butt for 9 months.
Mm-hmm. Well, now you know why they're not under any regulation.
Yeah.
You and I still are.
Oh, sure.
Oh, I was going to show you something. Just if I got you on the line. You remember I told you that Dodd Frank was an 849-page document? Really what it is, it's a 1,375-page document. When you get it in PDF, they take the bottom halves of unused pages and shove everything together and shorten it up. This is a certified document from the United States Printing Office. Now, if you look at this and you go to page 5, I'll go quickly. I'll show you something. You start to pick up, you see where Title V insurance is hidden in the middle of all this mess. Ironically, what makes it hard to read is if you start from the top and go to the bottom, or you start at the bottom and go to the top, it doesn't make sense. You got to start at the middle with the insurance thing and then work out. What I was going to show you is when you get down in this thing and you go to the section 603, this is actually where all the damage starts. It sets up a moratorium and a study on the treatment of credit card banks, industrial loan companies, and certain other companies they call it under the Bank Holdings Company Act of 56. This is where they started, this is where they gained the authority to start the moratorium, where they can kind of suspend the the regulation of these certain companies, these surplus line deals. But it's, that's why this document, I've reviewed it, it makes that Wikipedia page absolutely correct. But all of this can be had. Everybody should be studying it, although 1 in a million will. But you know enough about to know what I've been showing you is actually true. Everything I've said, I backed up with a government publication of some kind. I haven't made it. This isn't anything I've typed up. So when whoever's in your circle of influence, I can, you can email me and I can send you, start sending you a few links every now and then. I'll do that I can't do it with 1 million people, but I can do it with a few.
Okay.
People on this call I don't know how we're going to organize this, but the more people.
It's going to take some brainstorming to put together a cohesive group.
Yeah, and actually, what I've told you is much more complicated than what a group of 100 citizens actually needs to deal with. One of the things, I attempted to start a consulting business. I would charge a fee and travel anywhere in the country to different groups to show them what this is, and offer this, and it was going to be like a week-long thing. Everybody pitch in a couple $100, no more than 100 people. That I could actually then stay the other 4.5 days and help them generate the request documents, and then be there in a couple days when they got their responses back, and then show them how to put it together. Now, I run into a lot of people that they talk a lot, but they actually don't do anything. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things that I was trying to develop, was a way to organize groups, offer my assistance. I cannot travel for free. I have to keep bean money on the table. We all have these constraints. But if and what I'm doing is I'm setting this up on $7,000 a week, plus it's probably going to cost at least $3,000 in expenses for me to travel anywhere. If I travel to the wrong community that's real fancy and very expensive, it could cost $5,000 a week. To rent a ballroom and have a place set up, where you could put 100 people together and have internet access for everybody's computers to work.
Well, church organizations sometimes are, because they're all worried about their 501c3 status.
Exactly. I've had a lot of people look into different things, so I'm just going to have to do it myself. But here's the thing: if it costs $10,000 a week, if you divide that by 100 people over 5 days, it's like $20 a day.
I wonder, and I'm still kind of stuck in a church mode, if they were able to somehow flip their status from 501c3 to 501d, would that offer them more protection? Where they would be inclined to support the kind of seminar?
Well, actually, the thing about it is, if you were trying to set up a group of 100 people and you're only trying to save $500 of the expense per week, pay the $500 and go on and continue with business, and just leave the church out of it, because you're gonna run into so much opposition. Just rent the ballroom at some really nice hotel facility. Because what's $5? $1 a day per person. Why mess with the churches? And I'll tell you, you'll get a lot of pushback. Well, why would we want to go to all the paperwork and do all of the stuff to help your organization? Let's just get it done.
Yeah, no, I'm sort of thinking out loud.
Well, I understand, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if I was an administrator of a church organization, I wouldn't have anything to do with this. But again, the side benefit to me trying to brainstorm and put some kind of a consulting thing together, I've made it expensive enough that one individual wouldn't want to pay for all of it. They would actually seek a group out. If it was only 50 people, okay, so it doubles the expense. A couple $100 a week. Well, here's the thing. It also helps build a local group. Now, if you and 50 people in your county got together and invited me out and we did the deal, you can work with your neighboring counties. You can set up a committee and charge them back and get your money back. This networking thing will start building county to county to county to county. And, you see my documents and I help you get yours. Then you have your neighbors over, you show them yours and help them get theirs. Yeah. What I was trying to do is put something together that would require the people to come together to actually afford the information to begin with.
Sure.
This saving money is killing us.
Yeah. Now, are you recording this, or Glenn? Are you recording this?
Glenn is. He's got his mic muted.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Just kind of curious when it might be available.
Yeah, I'm recording it. I gotta go through it, and like where it gets dumped, I'll have to figure out how to fix that, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, because I need to review this a few times. There was so much really key information, and my notes are really floppy. I tried to. Well, my notes, they're not going to be adequate. So I'm going to have some time reviewing this a few times. And of course, I'm in the belly of the beast. You know, I'm in Chicago. Of course, I guess the beast is everywhere, but, you know, Cook County, there's nothing like it.
Yep. I told you earlier, if it was easy, I'd already have done it. I'd already had my district attorney arrested. I couldn't generate the community support. That's going to be your biggest hurdle. The documents are not that tough. Also, I want to say this is a 14-year project that I've condensed for you guys in maybe 3 hours.
Oh, okay. So it's okay for me to feel a little dull.
Oh, many sleepless nights, waking up and, you know, just thinking about what I got for 6 hours. You know, like the Constitution, just taking the 2 words, you know, office, or 3 words, office of profit. You know, and you know, I've had arguments about it. Well, then I did a little research on it. Come to find out, it's in Wikipedia. This hours and hours and hours of contemplating about how are the attorneys getting away with protecting the criminals from the people through their state judiciary systems. You know, and that one set of documents on those oaths of office I showed you, that 15 pages,
Yeah.
that took me 14 months to get. A request, 10 days later another request, and 10 days later another request. It took me 14 months to get that.
So now, when with your with the officials, the judges and whoever, the first step is to get a copy of their oath of office, and then on their oath of office is where their bonding information is. Is that correct?
Exactly. The way it's set up, the oath of office that they sign is the document that they attach the bonding information to. And then they record the oath and the bond together.
Okay.
Now I want to explain something to you. Part of my problem was I was asking for a surety bond, no records found. I'd asked for a fidelity bond, no records found. I was asked for this, I'd asked for that, no record found, no record found, no record found. Actually, what I did is I went in and talked to that lady, the treasurer, and I was down there actually a few years ago to vote early in the courthouse, and I ran in and I happened to see her, and I said, oh, by the way, and so she invited me into her office. She pulled her oath up on the computer, and that's when I realized it doesn't say anything about a bond on it. When I was asking for the bond, that was giving them the reason to say there was no record found. It's a big word game play. And so to keep it simple, just ask for the oath of office and then see what comes attached to it.
And if there is no bond information attached to it,
there is no bond.
Then isn't this where they're covered by the certificate of, what did you call it?
Well, if the certificate of participation, remember I showed you my district attorneys and there's nothing on it? He has nothing.
So if there is nothing, then there's no jurisdiction, and that person, according to law, should be arrested?
Exactly.
Oh, I remembered more than I thought.
Perfect. Now, since I've got you on the line and we're just kind of visiting about side things maybe a little bit, let me see if this will get me there. I did some research on the Colorado Bar Association. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to go to. I got several pages bookmarked. Let me find one. Here's one, the State Bar of Texas. I messed around with them a little bit.
I wonder if this would work for people that are violating their, corporations, businesses don't have oaths of office, or maybe they do, I don't know. But I wonder how you would, because, you know, there are financial officers in corporations that are required to have bonds. How do you find those bonds?
Well, you don't even worry about that until you get the judges and the district attorneys out of the way. But actually, how you can do it, you can go back into the corporate bylaws or wherever they work and find out what it says, and then backtrack that. Huh? Dang it. Esquire. I'm sitting here looking through I keep adding stuff to this, and then it dirties up, and then I just have to hunt and peck a little bit.
I wonder if that would be in their 10K report.
Huh?
I wonder if that would be in their 10K report.
I don't know. Oh, look at this. They've changed the Colorado Bar website. Look.
Uh-oh, they knew you were giving a seminar.
No, well, they know somebody's after them. Hang on, let me double check something here.
They might be doing some website work too. That's always a good excuse.
Well, I'll actually tell you, they mess around. You know, if I let too much information out, people start contacting different entities and things disappear, get moved around.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what really set me back is I had all these documents exposing all this stuff, and then in 2010, when Dodd Frank came out and they started using it in 2011, I actually had to go back and redo everything. Oh, look at this. Colorado Bar Association. Page can't be found. I'll be damned. Who are the members?
Curious. I had to look up the Illinois Bar Association.
Huh. Anyway, the way they use
I was looking at the Secretary of State for Iowa here, and the Iowa State Bar Association was dissolved in 2009.
I was just looking at the Iowa stuff about 2 weeks ago when I was messing with Chuck Grassley in Warren County, you know, the sheriff, and I think I stumbled upon something. They may have changed the way the name of it or something.
Looks like the county I'm in still has one.
What part of Iowa are you calling from?
I'm in the capital in Des Moines.
I was born in Ames, but our family was from Pleasantville.
Oh, okay. Who went to Iowa State?
I was born when my dad was in the ROTC at Iowa State.
Actually, he didn't finish there because he wanted to be he said he wanted to be a veterinarian, and when he got there, he found out he was going to have to take 7 more chemistry classes, and he came home for Thanksgiving, and he said, "Mom, would you mind if I changed my my major?" And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "I don't want to take that many chemistry classes." So, anyway.
Oh, we darn.
Yeah. He was there, but he just didn't want to do the chemistry.
Well, your sheriff there in Warren County, you know, based in Indianola.
Yeah.
And I looked into the Iowa Sheriff's Association. Yeah, he's in violation of your state constitution, and he doesn't know it. But you know, he came out of Missouri.
Interesting.
The sheriff in Warren County was actually recruited out of Missouri.
How could you tell that he was not in his?
That what?
How could you tell that his sheriff wasn't legal, or however you worded it?
Well, I'm looking for somebody in Warren County, and I don't know who I just spoke to, but I'll be glad to help them figure it out. I've actually researched sheriffs all over the country, and I've never found a constitutionally bonded sheriff. So your guy's not bonded either. Because once you catch a few of them, you've caught them all. You can't have one guy being an anomaly to the group. But again, no, go ahead.
The closest thing I just found when I was looking through was that they have a Polk County Jail Ministry Incorporated entity that may, it looks like it's the same as the Polk County Jail for the address as to where the agent is filed from. So I'd have to assume that's for the Polk County Jail here, but that doesn't make it lawful at all.
Polk County?
Yeah.
Des Moines in Polk County?
Yes.
I thought it was in Warren County.
Warren County would be down in Indianola.
I'll tell you what, when I was researching all of that mess, I was looking for information on Chuck Grassley.
Yep.
I was thinking of the Warren County Sheriff, not Polk. And somewhere in there I read that Des Moines was somehow part of that, but it might have been his congressional district. Part of it was in Warren County. But anyway, how you do that is if you write a 2-line request to the sheriff of Polk County Sheriff, requesting his oath of office. Have a quick copy emailed to your email address and a hard copy to your permanent address, and that's it, and sign it.
I will do that.
Then, when you get that, call me back and let's look at it. But you can actually, did you get on in time to see the certificate of liability coverage on the insurance?
No, I'm just on the phone side right now for one.
Okay.
For two, I just got on about 40 minutes ago.
Okay. Well, then you can, what you do is you look at the oath of office and see what they claim for the constitutional authority. So if you will read your Iowa Constitution, and you will find the section in there for your county employees, and it will list the constitutional requirements for an individual to hold those particular offices.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what your titling structure is in Iowa. In Colorado, I could show you this, but it will. What they do is they require these elected employees to provide financial protection in the event of malfeasance by that individual during their term of office. Mm-hmm. And that is, they used a bond to do that. Once you find the oath, you'll find it, and you won't find a bond on it. Then you can ask it, but it should say something about group insurance, county insurance, whatever.
Yeah.
You can request a certificate of liability coverage on that individual. You give them your name and your contact information. They call the provider, and then the provider provides you the certificate, and then we can unwind that.
Very nice.
And once you have that, you have everything it takes in common law to effect the arrest and prove without a shadow of a doubt the constitutional violation.
This call is going to end in 2 minutes. Do we want to continue?
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
Is the National Liberty Alliance doing anything with you to try to get these, constitutional well, we don't have any constitutional sheriffs that I'm aware of in Illinois, but they're the ones that are going to have the bond and the oath of office. Is that correct?
Well, they're supposed to. The National Liberty Alliance is not doing anything. I've been thrown out of it as a bunch of other people when we try to mention this new way. John Duresh and these guys having a different agenda. They're looking for $5 a person to pay their way. They are not solving anything. So,
okay.
Yeah, we constituted a common law grand jury in my county. We filed all the documents and did this and did that. We got with the leadership to continue on, and they turned their back on us. It was F this and F that. Yeah, I got a lot of derogatory messages and a bunch of...
the National Liberty Alliance, really? Wow.
Yep.
Well, that's a shame.
Well, it was when we started working further than what they were doing to expose government crime.
Yeah, but there's no need for that kind of behavior. You know, you can have disagreements without trying to assassinate someone's character.
Well, I ask a simple question. See, one of the things they were saying, so-and-so's doing something somewhere about something, and I said, well, how about telling us who it is and where it's happening and what they're doing? And I mean, it hit the fan. You know, when he's asking a simple question. So anyway, yeah, I would have mentioned National Liberty Alliance if they were actually doing anything.
Okay.
We had over a year relationship, me and several people in my county. Actually, part of the people that were supporting me, some of them are in jail right now on fictitious stuff, threatening law enforcement over this and doing different stupid things. So, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, that's amazing that the Colorado Bar changed their complete website, but I know it's because I was probably pushing too many buttons. Oh, here it is. I found it. They actually have a different part of their site where they recognize the requirement for professional malpractice insurance for malfeasance. One of the things I did with you guys, I showed one the other day. I got a report from the Colorado Supreme Court Attorney Regulation Council that they're not required to follow state statutes.
Are you going to share your screen?
I can.
Well, you said you found something, so I thought, but it looks like everybody's.
I'm sorry. I was just sitting here typing along on this Colorado Bar. Okay, here it should be on. They've reorganized the pages, but here's where they discuss where the lawyer's professional liability committee is. I'm going to have to reread all of this to see how they structured it. And about liability insurance directory and the state-by-state list of insurance companies that these attorneys can use that are set up. What it is, it'll be an internally held group by the bar itself. Yeah. See, even here in my Colorado Bar Association, the attorneys recognize, and it's information from the American Bar that insurance is required, yet my district attorney has no insurance on his oath of office. These guys are very heinous. They know they control the court, so it's like, sue me. What are you going to do? File all the charges you want. The judge will throw them out.
Well, they're clerks. They're not judges. They're clerks. Anyways, I guess we're about done then. Everybody's pretty well dropped off. I mean, there's a couple people on, but that's about it. But thanks, Jim. I hope I'm going to record. I got this thing still recording, and so I got to fix it because there's going to be spots I have to splice out and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for the call. I really I appreciate it. I learned a lot tonight. If nothing else, I learned a lot of what I didn't know, and it's good seed for more study.
Okay, Liz. Also, if anybody on this call, write down my email address.
I'm ready.
JPORTER2327 @yahoo.com. I use Skype quite a bit to do this screen sharing. We can do Zoom again. It's got a time limit. But anybody that, think about it a day or a week or whatever it is, and give me a jingle and we can reconnect individually and you can ask questions. I'll try to help you. The more I help others, the faster we're going to fix this problem.
Is it J Porter, Porter?
Yes, 2327.
At yahoo.com. Gotcha.
Yep.
Hey, you want to tell me that one more time? I'll write that down too.
Yeah. First of all, my name is Jim Porter. So my address is JPORTER 2327.
Got it.
At Yahoo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And remind me if you have a question, whatever it's about, and I'll try to bring me up to speed on what I need to go back over, and I'll be glad to do it.
Okay,